Hey, welcome to this episode of Hollywood Breaks. It's good to be with you this morning. Thanks for letting me release this a couple days late. We had a celebration with the family this weekend, and I just needed a few days to get my stuff together. But Keith was right there in support. We talk about what's happening with this Black Widow Scarlett Johansson lawsuit with Disney, and really wondering, is this an actress-only situation that's happening? Dwayne Johnson gave us something to think about. Hello Sunshine, though, Reese Witherspoon's company sold for some Beaucoup bucks this week. And that's a really interesting move and opportunities for new influencers to play in the field, as well as looking at actors and actresses' careers and how they played themselves out. And lastly, this throwback move with Universal and their Boss Baby release. So exciting stuff. If you're in the film, entertainment, even just curious space, we're happy to have you this morning. And here's Hollywood Breaks. Well, so my niece was asking me yesterday about the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit.
Yes.
And what was interesting is she made a conclusion about, well, what she asked me was, really what happened? What's the details? So I kind of explained to her the details of it. And then she asked what other people that I knew of that might be having this issue. And I listed actresses only. Those are the only ones I knew about. And she came out and said, is it only the actresses? I was like, gotta be honest with you. I'm wondering that same conclusion. I vocalized my concern that it's kind of only the actresses and that are kind of dealing with this situation. So I don't really know. I'd love to get into it. Maybe it's too small of a base to understand that, but there's something happening there.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's been some developments over the course of the last week. We had Brian Lord, who released a very I guess the word is well-worded statement in terms defending Scarlett and basically shaming Disney for their treatment of her by saying, "Oh, you're so callous doing this during COVID. Oh, and by the way, you already made 20 million."
So gross.
Gross. And so it's nice to see that there is someone stepping up. We've talked a lot about on this podcast how there's a sort of a lack of leadership in the industry right now. And Brian Lord has sort of always been the behind the scenes guy. And now he's stepping forward and saying, no, I'm not behind the scenes anymore. I'm here and I'm defending my client. Now, the flip side of that is also, do you think he'll never work with Disney again and vice versa? Disney will never work with it? No, that's just not realistic. But There are definitely some lines being drawn. And it is interesting that a lot of it's been mostly on the actress side that this issue has sort of been brought to the fore. You talk about Emma Stone and Cruella. She's making noise about that. And interesting enough, with Jungle Cruise, there was rumors that Emily Blunt was unhappy. But then Dwayne Johnson comes out with an Instagram post a couple of days ago saying, he's happy with, I'm happy to provide the opportunity for people to see it in theaters, which is where you should see it, by the way. But, by the way, I'm also happy that people can see it at home. They don't have to be worried about it. And it's interesting that he's not.
It's obviously a PR post, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's entirely possible that someone at Disney reached out to him and said, "Hey, could you post this?"
Right.
I mean, because a lot of the times actors don't really, even talent, don't really make moves like this unless it's somewhat coordinated, be it through his PR rep or, through the studio. And it's interesting because it really is sort of only on the actress side. And I think it really sort of belays the fact that there's still a lot of work to do in this industry in terms of figuring out the value of what talent is worth. But it's also interesting that you haven't really heard a lot of the Avengers assembling around Scarlett and her beefs.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if there's other deals at play, so their agents or managers saying, "Hey, let's just not get involved." Because Scarlett might be her last movie, right? But others.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. are done. They're not doing any more movies with. Supposedly not doing any more movies with Marvel. There's this new What If series on Disney Plus, which has a lot of the voice talent of the original Avengers. I don't know if Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. are involved in that, but Chris Hemsworth is still part of the universe technically. He still has one more movie coming out. And it's interesting that we haven't really heard anything from him. And the only one who's really spoken out and said anything is David Bautista from Guardians of the Galaxy. Otherwise, everyone else has been fairly quiet. I think it's more like we don't want to upset the apple cart. And this is what happens when you have 5 studios that dominate Hollywood. You have
Well, I
five
can think of
people,
some other
five
possible
companies
scenarios
basically.
where that you have every actor might have their own contract, so it might
Right.
they might or might not be able to relate to that.
Yeah.
They don't yet know what the impact
Hmm.
is because hasn't happened to them yet.
Right.
They can be politically I was going to say skewed, but politically focused in a certain area that they actually believe this is a very important thing to keep
Hmm.
the split release for the pandemic reasons. So
Yeah.
there might be different motivations behind that. I'll
Hmm.
give them some grace and understanding, but I'm kind of with you. Like there are probably more voices out there that know this. And when I said last week, I almost feel like this can be a SAG issue. Like someone's going to
Hmm.
have to step up and say, "Hey, you can't really change the rules right in the middle of people's contract, and
Yeah.
let's have a total contract we can work with together."
Yeah.
Because
And
these major studio conglomerates, they need someone major to push against them.
yeah, and SAG actually, Gabriella Carteris, I think is how you say her name. I only know her as Andrea from 90210. She came out and said that the way they treated Scarlett is horrible. And then obviously there's an election coming up. I think the ballots go out in like a week or two for a new president of SAG, and obviously this is going to be a big issue
Sure.
in terms of how this is going to play out in the future. Because listen, Disney's coming out and saying, listen, this is not how it's in her contract that this is supposed to be dealt through arbitration, not through public lawsuits. We have right of, where we want to release the project, which very well may be, but it's also, if it's in the contract that she was obligated this, then that they're forced to honor that. And that doesn't just go from a big conglomerate. It goes down to like a basic contract issue, which is sort of, not to get too technical, but sort of a foundation of this country in terms of a contract being honored. And if there are sort of disagreements on what that contract means, that's what the courts are for. But if it does literally say she has the right, she is entitled to a theatrical release of a certain expectation, then it's on her team to prove that, with a Marvel movie, this is the expectation. But so there's a lot of intricacies happening here, but I think it does go to show that this whole, what this means for the future is definitely sort of a question that I think is yet to be answered.
My BS meter goes up when they start spinning it against something else. When they,
yes,
it's like, oh, the red herrings of, well, doesn't she know it's a pandemic? And oh, shame on her for only worrying about money. And like, this is the largest money grabbing, contract biting institution there is. Yeah,
right.
they know the game they're playing, and to really try to use shame against somebody is absolutely ridiculous at this.
I agree.
This is not. This is gross. I have to say though, the Reese Witherspoon thing that's happening. Like this creates a new kind of understanding, a model of like how what it really takes, and the opportunity that many people have to be doing this. So, almost as a contradiction to what's going on. What's happened to her with Hello Sunshine is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, she sold her production company Hello Sunshine for a staggering amount of $900 million, although it wasn't technically totally $900 million. About $500 million, I believe, was to buy out the original investors in Hello Sunshine, and about $400 to buy equity in the company. Now, it was bought out by Tom Mayer, I think is his name. I'm blanking, and Tom Staggs. Both former Disney execs who were passed over for the top job, and they were backed by Blackstone, which is a major investment bank firm. But they're committed to building a sort of a multimedia company with Reese. And listen, she's very talented. And Kevin Meyer, thank you to Lydia, our behind the scenes producer, for correcting me. She's very talented in that regard. She's very determined. And it also showcases that as the formulas of talent start to shift, and the studios are going to be like, listen, we're not throwing you huge paychecks anymore, they have to start building other avenues of revenue based on their brand. So Reese has started Hello Sunshine, which is a production company, but also she has a book group, and then she's starting a podcast company. You look at someone like a Ryan Reynolds, who started a marketing company, which he then sold, and he also has a gin company, and then he also has a wireless company. So, And Dwayne Johnson has a tequila company. Well, pretty much every actor talent has a tequila company.
Right.
That's not really original, but
Right.
you get the sense that they realize that because their paydays decrease, and what a lot of people don't realize is when you get paid as an actor, there's like 3 or 4, depending on how many people you have supporting you, there are a lot of people who are taking a nice chunk of change out of that payday. 10% here, 15% there,
30%.
Yeah, you may, and then the government gets their cut, and it's at the end of the day, given how sporadically they may work, it's not necessarily a steady flow. So they have to use their sort of popularity in the culture and their brand in the culture to build out other streams of revenue, so they can sort of be a business in and of themselves, because they are ultimately a brand. And I think Reese is very smart. She got out early. She knew that there were content players or content makers who were looking for brands to attach themselves to. And this gives her the opportunity to show up with a lot more funding to build out the brand as she sees fit, and ultimately do a lot more things, I think, beyond just producing a show here and there. Like I said, she has a book club. She's probably going to, they're getting involved in podcasting. So it really is going to be a true multimedia company. And I think she's going to follow a lot in similar footsteps to what Ryan Reynolds has done with some of his ancillary businesses.
Really, this is such a smart play for these heavy actors and actresses to take advantage of. Really, the influencer marketplace has been theirs forever. They were always just hired as actors and actresses and being paid every time the commercial runs or something like that. Now to own the brand inside of it, put their name and their own brand behind it is really amazing. And kudos to Reese, because there is a huge movement that she's going to be able to take advantage of. Really, what we like to talk about here is just what the trend change is that Hollywood could now evolve into, and this is clearly a great move. It almost makes you wonder what Hollywood and these influencers are going to be like 10 years from now, and that influencer marketplace coming into Hollywood and Hollywood becoming influencers. It's just celebrity is the thing that we're trying to capture as much as possible. So interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, because we've talked a lot about how the day of the movie star and celebrity has shifted, and I think this is the way for them to still try to control sort of the cultural power they have, because back in the day they were just basically employees for hire, and the studio would use them however they saw fit to promote the movie, and they would do an occasional promotional ad or whatever, most likely in a foreign country because they didn't want to ruin their brand here. But now you see a lot of actors and talent taking control of their brand and using it to build out other ancillary businesses, which I think is very smart, because as celebrity shifts and sort of the idea of a movie star is fading away, you can't just rely on whatever show you're having to produce and the vanity deals of, I have a producing deal at Warner Brothers. Yeah, everybody and their brother has a producing deal at Warner Brothers. So it's like you're not distinguishing yourself. And that can be one part of the pie. But the other side is, Reese now can be more independent and choose how she wants to, use her influence and brand to build out other avenues that she would like to explore. So
yeah, it's so great because the Hollywood space has a lot of opportunity and some power, honestly, to do things. Like, there are influential people in the marketplace. We've seen some of it turn out to be bad behavior, and I think the bad behavior Hollywood guy or Hollywood actress has been around since, I don't know, the 1920s or whatever. Like, we already know. Some of those are what Access Hollywood and those entertainment magazines are about, really, is to cover some of that stuff. People's Magazine. But to know what the business of show business really is pretty awesome. I'm often curious what makes the difference. Like, why do some celebrities or well-known talent, how do they know when to take advantage of something like Reese Witherspoon has, or why do not all of them have that opportunity? Like, why do some of them pass it up and only just stay as an actor and actress? So that business move is always such an interesting one for me to understand for that creative career. It's an interesting kind of thing.
Well, I think it also is, a lot of them, take advantage of the fact that they ultimately are entrepreneurs in a lot of ways. in a lot of ways. And I think
I guess that's
that is what really distinguishes some from the others. Like some are just basically, a lot of them just want to be famous and, make cash the big check and live the entourage lifestyle. But other of them want more than that. Because I think when you get into sort of actors, like take Reese and Ryan, for example, as if I know them, that way. So my buddies Reese and Ryan, right? So if you look at both of them, they've been working forever, for a long time. They started young. They've both done sort of, their offshoot cheap, like Ryan Reynolds did a lot of really low budget comedies. Reese has done things on TV, and she did her stint in horror movies and what have you. But I think what they realize is that the fame and all that comes with it is fleeting, and it can go in a second. And especially with, as I said, the power of the movie star fading away, I think they've taken the right tack and realized, well, I have an opportunity here. I need to take advantage of it and find other avenues that I find more satisfying than just simply acting in front of the camera.
Yeah, it's so smart. It
is very smart. Yeah.
So I know from some of the comments you made beforehand that you were really impressed by this Boss Baby marketing rollout.
Yes.
There's some, we'll say throwback move that they've done really to promote that film, and kudos to them. They're getting some major results.
The entertainment strategy guy, who again I tout his work on this podcast quite often. If you aren't subscribed to his newsletter, you should be. He's very data driven, and it's fascinating to read his analysis, and he kind of digs deep to find out what exactly Netflix is doing when they're not really telling everybody what they're doing. And he has some really insightful columns. And one of his from this past week was basically traditional marketing still works, like big time theatrical marketing, which is what we used to do pre-pandemic, still works. And I think Boss Baby, the sequel to Boss Baby, showed that it can have ancillary benefits downstream. And entertainment strategy guy had a chart, I think, that showed that their show on Netflix for Boss Baby sort of on uptick pre and post release. And that's what you want to see. You want to see those kinds of brand growth, because if you're building a brand like that, like a Boss Baby, then that's kind of what you need. And I think they benefited from sort of not pulling back and saying, oh, well, this is just a streaming release, so we need to, cut back the marketing budget. I honestly don't know what Universal spent, but the fact that, it seems to have been somewhat of a success shows that, traditional marketing still does have a place sort of even in the dual release strategy.
I like that move from Universal, because they have all the platforms like Comcast, what they do and how they focus on all the platforms.
And Peacock.
For them for them to take advantage of all of it. And what they call that, the Golden
Symphony.
Golden Symphony.
The Symphony. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be able to understand that, leverage that, and focus that is pretty amazing. It's almost like you're saying that they've experimented with their old marketing models, and turns out they still got better results doing it somewhat in a traditional way with a theatrical marketing and push, just a platform push, than just simply relying on a platform, which is really cool. If you think about that, the difference between Comcast and Netflix does not have Peacock, NBC, theatrical and in the park kind of movement. It kind of shows the difference of play of an older studio over this kind of new, just straight OTT platforms.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it really is sort of the opportunity to showcase that things while things are changing, some things don't have to change. And they've done a very effective job with the Symphony by pushing out, Boss Baby to all their ancillary channels. They had the promo for the Olympics as well, Peacock, and they've always been very effective at this, and as a company. And I think this goes to show that some of the old methods and ways of really reaching your audience still apply, despite the fact that you have it on an OTT platform and in theaters at the same time. And that can help to increase your revenue, obviously, if you get people to be more aware of the title. And I think because everyone assumes that you're going to might necessarily be less, because you're not necessarily doing a fully theatrical release, you want to pull back on your marketing spend. But obviously Boss Baby shows that might not necessarily be the best strategy.
Interesting. And it also, Oh, as a matter of fact, I remember seeing the trailer for Boss Baby in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, in my mind, it registers as a movie because I saw a movie trailer in a movie theater instead of
Mm-hmm.
simply what turns out to be a commercial on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that has some weight to it, of like how you present your film and how you want it to be weighed in your audience's mind. Of like, no, let's call it a movie. Let's act like a movie. Let's put it as a movie. And therefore now you get a large brand built around that, and it's somewhat a franchise brand for Boss Baby.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. And I think that, again, it's really smart. And then we can, I'll just pivot this real quick to Suicide Squad this past week, which did not perform well. It underperformed, but this also goes to show that sometimes a brand can be somewhat damaged. The last Suicide Squad was not very well received, and they obviously suffered some ancillary result from that, from sort of the reception of the previous version, if you will, or the previous film. And it just goes to show that, if Warner's had sort of leaned in to sort of say, hey, this is not what the last one was, this is a totally different MO, maybe that would have helped to shift the balance a little bit. So,
yeah. The New
York Times
review of Suicide Squad was joke, joke, bang, bang. And then it says, that's pretty much the review.
That's pretty brilliant. I love it.
And you almost feel like, wasn't that the same as Deadpool? But for some reason, the difference between them.
A lot of the tongue-in-cheek comedy movies are superhero movies these days.
Yeah, it's totally the evolution of what we mean by a hero, I think, is somewhat challenged. I don't know why Suicide Squad is not doesn't stick the same way as Deadpool, but I think some of their joking is a little bit more.
And I think there is one thing, and this is another thing that sort of highlights the changing era in which we are in. But you think about R-rated movies, if you're under 17, you can't get in. But if your parents have HBO Max, you can watch it at home.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
So that's another thing to consider. Like, even though this was the highest R-rated, I mean, again, speaking of spinning, Warner Brothers totally spun it and said highest R-rated movie and since the pandemic started. Like, well, yeah, okay, great, good for you.
Yeah,
but
highest R-rated movie about superheroes that star female actress, and since the how many subcategories can you have?
Yeah, it highlights the issue that having it on streaming will present. Like, it's a lot easier for kids to watch when they can just watch it at home on HBO Max and they don't have to show an ID or anything like that. So
that's really great. Well, I have to say, I appreciate you kind of staying up on the trends and looking things through.
Well, you were boogieing on the dance floor. I was hard at work.
Dude, my thighs are so tired from all the boogieing. I was joking, awesome. Like, there's those songs that just go like low, 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 low. There must have been 5 or 6 of those, and I couldn't exactly. Like, I just couldn't get any lower. I got to be honest.
You couldn't get any lower, Tim. Yeah. You should have done your stretches beforehand. You're gonna pay for it, dude. You're gonna be walking around funny for the next week.
No. It's not happening.
No low.
I tried. I really did try. If you saw photos, you'd see me doing it. That was really fun. Well, I appreciate you helping me and pushing this till Monday so I can go to the rehearsal I needed to last Friday.
If any of our fans are complaining that we're late this week, it's because it's him.
Yeah, it's all my fault. I promise.
Throw your hatred all at him, not at me. It's not my fault. It's all Tim.
That's what this appeal is about. Don't be hating. I was busy.
Yeah. Wedding, schmedding, whatever.
Well, appreciate you, and I appreciate Lydia behind the scenes, making sure we are getting the names right and keep us on track. She's our timer too, so she's the one making sure we're getting all done. So we appreciate you and all that you're doing. Go Social team and their big push out there. If you like what you hear, you want to know more, please feel free to contact us. You can DM us through any platform that's out there. And of course, you can watch us and subscribe to us on your podcast platform, as well as right here on YouTube. So we appreciate you and the audience out there. Keith, anything coming up we need to know about? We're going to be just talking in 4 short days. So we'll have to wait for the Wednesday, Thursday.
Well, you gotta give me a breather, Tim. I mean, I've been doing all the work for this episode, so
I'll do the work this week. I'll see what
let me focus. We're done with this one. I'll start on Friday's episode.
Right. I have to imagine between all the work you do with your clients and then being in Maine and all the lobster you're eating, you have to.
Yes, and and all the weight I'm putting on. So yes, exactly.
All right. Well, I appreciate you. I'll see you soon.
See you soon, Tim.